Hi guys, so sorry I'm a minute late. I don't know how to do live videos, but I have everything hopefully sorted out now. So thanks for spending your Friday night or afternoon with me to talk about attainable goal setting, budgeting your time, turning off technology, especially when a lot of what we do is based with your phone or your computer, kind of tuning into MyFitnessPal, and self-care and how that kind of fits in with kind of everything above. So I'm going to try to be somewhat organized with how I go through it, but you'll kind of see that there's a lot of overlap, and hopefully I will be able to cover the questions that I have received on the Facebook page. So starting with goal setting, I mean, we're all part of this community and all part of this team to either become a better athlete, to lose weight, gain weight, just become healthier, feel better, whatever brought you to WAG. There's of course going to be either an end goal or a reason that's brought you here. But what often happens is that we sort of get attached to the end product as opposed to everything that happens along the way. So depending on what your goals are, that can end up being a little bit discouraging. So if you want to, I use training as a metaphor for this quite a lot because I think it works in a very logical way. So if you want to squat 300 pounds and your current squat is 150 pounds, you're not gonna all of a sudden just go into the gym, load up the bar with 300 pounds and try to squat it, because that makes absolutely no sense. And not being able to squat 300 pounds doesn't mean that you're a bad athlete. It doesn't mean that you are never gonna be able to squat 300 pounds. It just means that at this moment, you need to focus on, increasing 10 pounds, 20 pounds, and, taking a look at the building blocks that will get you from 150 to 300 pounds. So I'm actually gonna maybe link this in the group tomorrow, but there was this kind of, I can't remember his name, but he was doing this really great sort of like sit down conversation on sort of like a podcast type thing. And to kind of gloss over it a little bit, the idea was that he was interacting with his viewers, and he said, email me and let me know what one thing is that you've always wanted to do but have never been able to do. So this one woman wrote him back and said, I really, really want to run 3 times per week. And he said, okay, so, what's stopping you? And she's like, oh, I don't have time, I can't do this, I can't do that. And he said, okay, well, why don't you start with just running 1 time a week? It's really simple, it's an easy step to get towards 3 times a week. And she's like, oh, well, what's the point? It's just once a week. So a lot of times we can kind of, I guess, limit our current potential when we get caught up with these end goals. So in terms of what the point of all of this is that making small goals, although they're less exciting and less glamorous than, let's say, hitting a huge PR or reaching your goal physique or whatever that kind of end goal is, when you break it down into smaller goals that that you can attain, so be it, drinking more water, getting more rest, spending 20 minutes taking quiet time before bed so that you can actually shut off, all of those things are going to help you in the moment to get to your end goal. And when you focus on smaller goals rather than jumping to the end goal, you also begin to develop more self-confidence and self-trust, because there's nothing worse, I mean, in my opinion, and I think I hear it from some of my members sometimes, is when you get so caught up with being at the end, being at the end point. And we talk about the process a lot, and it's kind of, fluffy, but it's true. If you can think about some small things every single day that you can do, I call it my checklist. So be it macros, hitting the gym, doing my cardio, taking time to read, spending time with my loved ones. If you just block out a little bit of that time, you will get towards your goals. And to clarify, so I'm going to kind of come back to this. So this is the overarching theme. So setting small goals does not mean that you are limiting yourself. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't have those crazy, I want to make it to the games. I want to lose 50 pounds. I really want to be able to run a 10-minute mile. Is that good? I don't know what a good mile time is. I don't run. But you can still have those end goals, but build up to it and choose what it is that's most important to you so that you're not feeling like you're being torn in 1,000 different directions. So on that note, I'm going to talk a little bit about allocating time and energy towards your goals. So in terms of the feeling that we all get sometimes of, oh my gosh, I don't even have time to, shave my legs or sit down and take a deep breath, let alone conquer the world, which I think is what we all kind of try to take on sometimes, is if you sit down and kind of look at where your time gets spent, you can probably figure out a few places where you're kind of wasting your, not wasting, but where you could edit slightly. So for me, it would be, I hit snooze 3 times in the morning and then I spend 10 minutes scrolling through Instagram. That is not a good allocation of my time necessarily. So I know that if I take a little closer look, I might have an extra 25 minutes, half an hour at the very start of my day that I could use to wake up with a mindfulness app, or if I wanted to make sure that I had a good lunch packed for the day. So when you take a little bit of a closer look at how your days are built and how you allocate your time, you will be able to sort of, oh no, hopefully I'm not the only one having problems viewing this. No video. Okay, if anyone else is having problems, comment below so that I can try to figure it out, because hopefully that's not the case and it's coming up fine for me. Sorry, so back to time and energy. I'm sorry if you can't see me. So yeah, back to your day. So when you figure out kind of where you're losing time and losing energy, you're able to be more aware of your actions and how you can kind of, there's a bug on my screen, create more space for the things that truly matter to you. And I think it was Taylor that said this after her live video, and it's like, instead of just saying, I don't have time for this, if you say, I'm not making this a priority or this isn't important to me, then that kind of changes your perspective a little bit. Oh, yay, someone sees the video. Okay, I hope you get it figured out, and I'm gonna answer your question. Thank you for your question. So another thing that actually one of the lovely members commented on is, like, how do you figure out balance? Like, how do you figure out, if you have a family, if you have a job, or you're in school, or both, if you're training, if you have kids, social life, all these things, like, you have so much going on that you need to kind of be efficient with your time and reflect on what it is that is important. So for example, like, we all track macros. So if I know that I am going into a period where I have a ton of schoolwork, or I'm working a lot, or I am, wanting to invest more time into my family, it might mean that I'm still gonna hit my macros, but I'm not gonna cook, a gourmet meal necessarily. Because at that point, eating an amazing, delicious meal that took me like 2 hours to prepare is not on the top of my priority list. So at that point, food is going to be more of like I'm going to figure out an easy way to hit my macros and kind of go from there. And then, meal prep for the week, it's not necessarily going to be amazing or fancy or complicated, but I'm gonna do things that make me feel good, foods that I know that I can prepare quite easily, and then I will go from there. And my dog is coming to join us, I guess.
I think I'm gonna take a moment left.
Okay. Yeah, my dog is acting up. It's first time in public. Okay, so yeah, so that's going to change over time. So in the same way that we talk about being flexible with your macros, you know, be it over the holidays or on vacation, you need to be kind of flexible about what your true top priorities are. And that, of course, is going to change over time. So if you're prepping for a meet, obviously your training and hitting your numbers is going to be your number one top priority. If you have noticed that your quality of life is dropping because you are only getting 5 hours of sleep, then maybe that means that you have to look at why are you only getting 5 hours of sleep. If it means, you know, because you're staying super late at, you know, hanging out with your friends, it might mean that you need to shift that and allocate a little bit less time to that so you can increase your well-being. So it's just kind of about making those types of choices. So kind of picking back up on the, you know, where your time wasters are, turning off your technology, which is something that I think everybody in this day and age could probably be a little bit better about. Just because we are so connected, and a lot of times we have these sort of subconscious, like this subconscious connection to our phones. You know, it's always in our hand. Everything's so accessible, which is amazing. But you also need to be very intentional about how you kind of interact with that. So, for example, scrolling through Instagram, the second I open my phone, sometimes I'll open my phone for a purpose, and then I'll be like, oh, why am I on Instagram? That's not why I came here. So I haven't used this app actually, but I'm gonna download it tonight. But Adi mentioned it to me. It's called Moment, and it actually tracks how much time you're spending on your phone and maybe what kind of activities you're doing, which I think would be really, really interesting, because, you know, you probably do a lot that you don't even know. So that is, oh, I'm getting lost here. Okay, so actually this is coming back to a great question. So as macro trackers, and I hear sometimes, you know, I don't want to feel glued to my phone. When I'm enjoying a meal with my family, I don't want to have to be concerned about, you know, pulling my phone out. I don't want to be rude. I want to be present. And that is amazing. And I'm like super happy that you want to sort of disconnect a little bit and actually be present with your food, with your family, and enjoy whatever occasion it is. So I have a few suggestions for that. And this is actually a question from one of my members. Thanks, Jake. So 2 things. One is, not to push meal prepping, but when you do meal prep and have kind of a solid plan for the day, you have to be less sort of engaged with continually checking what you're eating. So if I know that I have to eat XYZ, I can prepare all of that the night before. I can bring whatever meals I need with me to work, to whatever activities I am doing that day. And then I don't need to be on my phone checking, looking at macros for foods, trying to balance things out. And if, like, rather than trying to play macro Tetris at every meal, or trying to figure out how you're gonna make it work. So that's definitely one thing that I would suggest. And the same thing kind of goes with eating out. So I hear this a lot too. Where you're going out for dinner, you don't know necessarily what you're going to be eating, and in that case, it's sort of like you need to figure out how to plan roughly. So if you don't know necessarily what you're going to be eating, it's best to kind of choose something that you know that you can probably get anywhere and leave lots of macros. So most people, after about a month or 2 on the program, you'll start to kind of understand what macros are in each food, or each kind of portion of food. Yeah. And then you can kind of make wise choices. So, I mean, my super boring go-to is something like a chicken with some vegetables, or even grilled fish, so that I know a serving of that at a restaurant is going to be approximately, I don't know, about 40 grams of protein. I'll leave extra fats just so that I don't need to really worry about that. Like I'll leave like 20 fats just in case. And then a good chunk of carbs too. So then I can eat moderately and then input everything and then see where I'm at. And if I need to kind of tidy up with protein or anything, there is that option. But I definitely agree that like meal times, bed, like in the bedroom, like you shouldn't have your technology in your face. And it should hopefully not be the first thing that you end your day with and kind of start it with. So, you know, charging your phone outside of the bedroom, buying an alarm clock if that's something that you need to wake up in the morning, and just kind of getting ahead of yourself to have a plan for the day so that you're not continually having to you know, look at your phone and kind of come back to that. It's kind of like almost like having that task that you need to finish, and you just need to do it, and then you can stop thinking about it and get on with your day. So it's kind of the same thing with planning macros. And of course, depending on how far you are in the program, you're going to have an understanding kind of what your day of eating looks like. So you need to be a little bit less, I guess, like actively thinking about building your day because you have a routine. But definitely, especially for newer members, building your day in MyFitnessPal will help you immensely. Okay, so this is a little bit of a sidebar, but still related to technology, kind of regarding like social media and maybe like figuring out when is a good time to take a step back. So I've had a conversation with a few people, and I think it's really, really powerful that my members have kind of discovered this. But a lot of times, you know, social media, it will give you inspiration. It might be the reason you found WAG, which is super exciting. It also allows you to see, you know, what people are doing. Like I know, especially for me, like if I would see another girl, you know, bench X amount of pounds, I'm like, oh, that might be something I could do. So there is some sort of like positive drive to being connected. You get a sense of community, you get inspiration, motivation. It's something that can keep you accountable and inspire you, which is fantastic. But sometimes you get really caught up in allocating your time to seeing what people are doing, rather than taking that time and investing it back into getting yourself where you want to be. So I actually did a little bit of an experiment with this, and just deleted the Instagram app off my phone for about a week. And for the first week, for the first few days, it felt like someone had like chopped one of my hands off. Like I didn't know what to do with myself when I opened my phone, because it was such a kind of like a reflex to open my phone, scroll through Instagram, Facebook, and you know, just kind of go through the social media, even when it wasn't necessary. So it was really interesting to see how much time I spent doing it, and I think that if you guys did a little experiment, you would probably be surprised too. But I think that when we spend so much time, you know, being connected and looking at what other people are doing, it can kind of lead into like comparison and seeing, oh, this person is doing this, why can't I do that? You can, by setting small attainable goals to get you from point A to point B, because that person didn't, you know, get the body they have or hit the amazing weights that they hit in the gym, or you know, outside of that, like if you have people that you admire for their other talents, or if you have other hobbies, like just try to take that time and allocate it back to yourself. So this is probably one of the most exciting things that I'm excited to talk about, is the kind of like bucket theory, which is, I'm pretty sure, a common term for it. So in our life, we have lots of buckets. And for a lot of people, sometimes when you have a goal, it can kind of box you in. So you might end up only having 2 buckets, be it training and nutrition, let's say. And not to say that you don't have other things in your life, but the things that kind of drive you that fuel you and make you feel like you're accomplishing things. So things that kind of fill you up, that you're passionate about, that you are excited about. Those are your buckets. So when you have only two, or if you only have a couple, if something goes wrong in one of those sort of arenas, so again, training, you get injured. As an athlete, your chances are you're probably going to get injured like along the line. You might get sick, you might have a medical procedure, and you might need to take time off of training. And then what? And then what do you do to release your stress? What do you do to feel like you're accomplishing things? What do you do to make you feel like you've had a productive day? So kind of creating space in your life beyond, be it training or macros or just one thing. It's kind of like not putting all of your eggs in one basket. So if you can identify other ways to kind of build your well-being, build your self-esteem, your self-worth, increase your confidence. So I don't know, if you really love to cook, maybe it's allocating time to make sure that you can try out new recipes, and then you can share that with your friends. Like that would be a really amazing connection, especially to like if you have friends that are curious about macros, or if you want to make friends in the gym, like then it can kind of be like a community building activity, or setting a phone call with a family member, or if there's a sport or a hobby that you had, be it dancing or aquafit, like it doesn't matter what it is, like creating time to sort of experiment with other things or return to activities that used to bring you a lot of joy that maybe you just stop prioritizing, can be a nice sort of breather and will increase sort of how you feel in terms of being a well-rounded, healthy, happy, passion-filled person. Because chances are at one time or another, just because of life, not all of your buckets are going to be, equally full, or things happen and one bucket might be, there might be a little hole poked in it for a little bit and you lose some water, and that's just part of life. So when you have a bunch of things that you can kind of invest in that make you feel good, and it doesn't need to be anything major, you at least have this like a whole bunch of buckets that you could fill an entire well. So like you don't need to rely just on one to kind of increase your like happiness, I guess, very simply. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about, because I am getting close to the time that I should be answering some questions. So if you have any questions, you can start commenting them and I will kind of see them pop up on my screen. Self-care. So this is something that we talk about a lot, and it's something that I think a lot of us struggle with making space for, because it can feel sometimes a little bit, selfish to create boundaries, or selfish to say that you need to do certain like XYZ to make you feel good. So it could be anything from 5 minutes a day to taking time on a weekend to get outside with your family, leave your phone at home. That's another good thing. If you get outside, you can disconnect, leave your phone and spend time with your family or friends or loved ones or dogs or cats. I don't know. So just kind of being able to kind of stand up for what you need to feel good. And this is something that truly should be non-negotiable. And it's one of those things that if you were to have this conversation with a friend, it would be a lot easier for you to kind of encourage them and support them to do the things that they need to do. So I personally, one thing that I found was really nice to kind of not force myself to do it, but to get into a routine, is that I would, part of my morning routine was to have 20 minutes to have my coffee or tea and journal about either things I was grateful for or some things I was excited for about the day, small little goals that I had for the day to kind of get me towards my bigger goals, like just to kind of having a self check-in to see where I was for that day was really helpful to kind of bring clarity to what it was I was trying to accomplish with my day, how I was feeling, if there was anything that I knew I needed. So if I woke up, I felt awful, I was really tired, I would know that, okay, for today, I know that I need to prioritize sleep. So I would make it a goal to be, in bed at a certain time. And in the same way, I'm sure like some of you have heard from your coaches to like log in your macros the night before, or like every night rather than leave it to the end of the week. And the reason we say that is so that you can see, oh, am I above, am I below? What choices could I have made today with my food that would have brought me a little bit closer? It's the same thing, but in terms of sort of mental well-being and kind of checking in to see what it is that you need to, have a better day the next day, and then kind of block out one day a week where I try to shut off. So for me, it's Saturdays. So I have a little tiny block in the morning that I will get up and answer emails so that I will be all caught up until the next day, so that I can really like shut off. I can, if I want to go explore, I can do that. I don't need to be connected to my phone. I can, do the not so fun stuff of being an adult, like go grocery shopping, cook. But that's like my day to figure out what it is that I need to get done, time to kind of shut off and just like kind of quiet down and quiet my brain and not be so connected. So that is kind of what I do to block out time to make sure that I am doing self-care. So I actually got a really incredible question on the Facebook page, and I hope that you can see my video now. So the question was, I can't open it up, but the gist of it was, goals are great, but I find that I get too caught up with my end goal that it can actually kind of damage or like make you feel disappointed or foster kind of not so positive feelings in the meantime. So it's actually a really fantastic question, and I think I'm probably just going to be repeating a little bit of what I said earlier, but you have to kind of bring a generous perspective when it comes to your goals and kind of being patient with yourself. Like, I don't think anyone would, if like their friend told them, oh, I'm trying to achieve this really huge, incredible goal, but I'm only here right now. And I'm still going, and I'm still working towards my end goal, but I feel stuck and I feel disappointed and I'm not where I want to be. Well, like, yeah, because you're, I don't know how much of my hands you can see. I'm a big hand talker. So let's do it this way. So if you're starting here and your end goal is here, picture it this way, because this seems like negative. As long as you're progressing and you're feeling excited about your goal, there's no shame, there's no, not to say that you shouldn't feel hungry for that goal, but it shouldn't discount where you are. What's way cooler is that you actually decided to take on the challenge to get to point B rather than just stay, in your starting point where it's comfortable and where you, maybe not that you're comfortable, but there's nothing to lose. When you decide to take the chance and say, no, I'm actually going to go after this goal, that's actually a really vulnerable place to be in, because it's saying that you believe enough in yourself that you can achieve this goal. And not everybody can say that. Not everybody says that. And not everybody puts themselves in that type of vulnerable position to, take a leap and kind of hope for the best. Because as I'm sure you all have noticed, progress isn't linear. You go through ups and downs, and there's things that come up, and there's successes, and there's really, really hard weeks, and there's probably days that you are questioning, why you're doing this at all. But that's why the small goals are really helpful, because you can kind of reconnect to what you just have to do right now. It doesn't matter what you're doing tomorrow. It doesn't matter what you're doing the day after, next month, 6 months from now. What you just need to know is that you have set up a plan, with the support of your coach to work towards your end goal. Oh, sorry, I just got a question. Hi, Chev. So you, again, back to the, squatting 300 pounds. You might not be able to load on the bar 300 pounds and hit that squat immediately, but if you hit 200 pounds, it's a 50-pound improvement. That's freaking amazing, and you should absolutely celebrate that. That's a huge accomplishment. So trying to just kind of like remind yourself that the small goals, even though they're maybe less glamorous, less exciting than the absolute end goal, which will probably also change over time too, is like those are the building blocks of the end goal. So don't discount them, because they really, really are incredible. In the same way that sometimes you don't always see changes every single week, and then you look back and compare photos from 5 weeks ago and you're like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea that I had seen so much changes. Or you go to put on a pair of pants and all of a sudden they don't fit anymore. It kind of happens like slowly and then suddenly. So try to kind of be patient with your goals in that regard, and know that as long as you're taking steps, that you are making progress, and maybe setting time once a week to kind of look over what you accomplished this week. Was there a workout or a situation that you conquered in a way that you wouldn't have handled quite as well in the past? Because I think that those behavioral sort of switches and mindset wins kind of get looked over. So if you were able to, even like a tough situation at work, take a 5-minute breather just to calm down, instead of being like, oh, I'm stressed, I'm gonna go eat something because I'm stressed out. Like that's a huge win. Or even if you go out and you're not perfect with your macros, but you still make good choices based on your goals rather than having a huge blowout meal. Like those are all tangible. Hopefully, if you write them down, you can have them all there, that those are all like really huge successes, and that kind of taking time to review that will help. One more thing about goals, and then I'm going to answer some questions. So another one of the comments was, how do you create more specific goals? So this is actually really quick. But basically what I personally do, and what I will often ask my members to do, is think about where you want to be very specifically 6 months from now. What does that look like, be it physically, with your life schedule, with what does your day look like? How do you feel? What is the first thing you do in the morning? What is the last thing you do before you go to bed? How do you, is there a certain meet that you want to qualify for? Like if there's actual specific things that you want, write it all down. So if you want to hit a certain number at a competition, you might know, okay, I need to work backwards. So I might need to look at, I'm gonna use muscle ups. Muscle ups are like really, really easy. I wanna hit a muscle up, okay. While gymnastics are very technical. So you might go and talk to a coach in your gym that you know is awesome at muscle ups, and be like, hey, can you watch what I'm doing? Is there something that I'm doing that I could refine a little bit to make it easier? If there's gymnastic classes at your gym, maybe commit to going to one once a week, so that you can have a little bit more time to invest in that specific skill. And then, gymnastics movements are a lot easier if you are lighter. So if your goal is fat loss, then continuing to hit your macros and is going to help you lean out, and you just have a better kind of body weight to strength ratio. So it'll be easier. So if you need to hit your macros, you'll know that you need to, plan your day ahead, or take a time on a Saturday or Sunday to block out what you're going to eat for the week, and then go grocery shopping so that you can get yourself set up. So when you kind of boil it down from 6 months, a couple months away, what is that going to look like? What is that going to feel like? And then what actions can I do every single day, big or small, to kind of get me towards that end goal, is kind of how I like to look at it. So I'm going to wrap up in about 5 minutes or so, but I do have some questions, or a question that I'm going to go through. So the question is, how do you strike a balance between 100% self-loathing after blowing macros for a day versus being too cavalier about it? I have trouble being in the center of these two, and it's usually the former. Well, first of all, I guess just like, it depends on like what happened, how you can kind of approach it. But the most important thing is that like it's something that's happened, and there's nothing that you can do to change it the next day. Waking up and saying, "Oh, I suck. Oh, I'm never gonna get to my goals." You know, if you start playing that negative tape in your head, you're not going to fix what, or not fix. You're not gonna undo what you ate. It's what happened. It's over. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is move forward. So, I mean, you're allowed to be a little bit disappointed and say, you know, maybe that wasn't the best choice for me to have made to get me towards my goals. But hopefully you can look back and kind of see what opportunities for growth there might be. So, you know, a lot of times it's going out for dinner, or, you know, the holidays just passed. We all probably had a meal where we feel like we could have done a little bit better. So, for example, I could have rolled up to my mom's house, let's say, and you know, she says dinner's gonna be ready at 6, so I have my macros ready and I have it all planned out, and then dinner isn't ready until, you know, 8 o'clock at night, and I'm starving, so I end up snacking on, I don't know, a bunch of chocolates or cookies or whatever's kind of laying around. What I could do is be like, oh, okay, like, cookies are delicious, but if I had made sure that I had, you know, packed some vegetables, or made sure that I had like a high volume meal of like protein and veggies before I went, so I wouldn't be going in absolutely starving and like ready to like sit down and eat, you know, myself into a turkey coma. That probably would have been an easy way for me to have handled that better. So I guess like just try to practice some like self-compassion and be like, okay, like you're human, things happen. It might not have been the best choice, but it is something that you have to learn from. And as long as you're taking accountability, then you're not letting it go to waste. And as long as the next time a similar situation comes up, you can tap into that to kind of remind you how to handle it a little bit better. So hopefully that answered your question. And Katie Lynn, no nails? Yeah, I have no nails, which for those of you who don't know me, I take my nails really seriously. When I competed at nationals, I spent about 3 hours getting my nails done beforehand, and they were like covered in jewels and really intense. But when I volunteered at a dog shelter, and I don't want to hurt the doggies with my pointy nails, but also they get chewed off quite easily because they're plastic, and dogs like to chew plastic things. So no nails for now. How do I practice self-love, and how do you push yourself when you don't want to go to the gym? Whew. Okay, we'll do how do you push yourself when you don't want to go to the gym first, because that's a little bit easier and shorter. Like lots of different ways. I mean, it depends on why I don't want to go to the gym. Sometimes I will just sort of, you know, be my own coach and be like, Kate, if you want to do X, Y, Z, you gotta get to the gym and you need to do it. And I kind of give myself some tough love. But one thing that I will often do is, it doesn't matter what day it is. Well, like I'll try to keep it related. But say, for example, I have to do some squats that I really don't want to do. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to go and do this like warm up that I really like first. Or I'll try to like make a deal with myself where it's like, okay, if you go and after you're done the first 3 sets of squats, if you don't want to be there, you can leave. And like 99.99 times out of 100, by like the second set of squats, I'm like, oh no, this is awesome. So just kind of get yourself there and like don't even think about it. Like the more you kind of sit and think about all the reasons why you shouldn't go or you don't want to go, the easier it is to kind of make those excuses. So once you kind of like make it a routine and hopefully you can kind of like convince yourself to go for the sake of investing in your goals, it's a little bit easier. But sometimes it's just like, I need to tell myself to suck it up and just do it. Like it's something that you started doing because you love it. Chances are you're working towards something that you love. So there's going to be those days in between that aren't going to be super exciting or that you're not, you know, rearing and ready to go for, but it's kind of just part of it. So just go to the gym. And how do I practice self-love? Well, clearly not by getting my nails done, but I try to very actively just like watch how I talk to myself. And I very actively try not to let like negative self-talk get in my head, because I think once you do, it's really easy to kind of circle around that thought. So when so say if I mess up or if I do something that I'm not super proud of, or I am having a bad body image day, or like any of those things, I'll like recognize this negative thought and then I'll try to think where it's coming from. And you know, usually it's not true, it's not a fact, it's a feeling. And it usually comes from a place of not feeling, you know, amazing about myself. And then I'm like, nah, Kate, you're actually great. And then I will, like, this sounds silly, but I will actively sit down and be like, no, these are all the things that I'm good at. I'm funny, I have really great hair, I am kind, I am a good cook, I try to be a really good coach, like, and that sounds like arrogant to say out loud, but it's not. Like, realizing that you have so much to offer and that you are amazing in your own way. And this sounds cheesy, but it's true, I don't care. Like, the more you can actively sort of stop feeling like guilty or shy or weird about proclaiming how awesome you are, and like looking over your week and be like, I did all these amazing things, or, you know, this is what I bring to my relationships that's really unique, or this is what I can offer in terms of the things that I uniquely, you know, maybe I'm really good at playing an instrument, or the more, kind of back to the buckets, when you have kind of confidence and comfort in being able to be like, no, I'm actually amazing because of all of these things, and you don't feel shy about it. Like, it sounds silly, but if you get comfortable with like talking about why you're awesome, even just to yourself, like, I mean, you don't need to go up to strangers and say, hey, I'm Kate, these are all my amazing qualities, but like a lot of people, you know, you try to downplay your accomplishments, you try to be humble, and, you know, that's a, you know, good quality, but you also are allowed to be excited about all of the amazing things that you do and have done, and be proud of it. So kind of being able to be gentle in your own mind is so important, because like, you spend all your time with yourself, and if you're spending time with someone who is like talking bad about you, or, you know, damaging your self-esteem, that's not healthy. So definitely I try to practice just like positive self-talk as much as possible, and when I'm feeling down, that's kind of what I try to tap into, which is easier said than done, but it's something that is definitely worthwhile to work at. So I've been talking for just over 40 minutes. So if anyone has any questions, I know not everyone is watching this live, just comment. I don't know if this video is going to be posted in the Facebook. I don't know exactly how this works, but either like comment on the video or comment on my original post that I made, and I will do my absolute best to give you an amazing answer via Facebook comment. So have a good night, everybody. I'm not sure what time it is with everybody, but I'm sure you've seen it get really dark here. So it is nighttime. Bye, guys.